Hi everyone, I'm Michael. Welcome to today's class. Disagreement is part of human nature. From our colleagues to our roommates to our family members, we often come into conflict with those around us. Maybe our coworkers dislike our work style. Perhaps we don't like our uncle's conservative political views. Or maybe our roommate is annoyed by the noise we make in the morning. Though sometimes these disagreements can be trivial, when they cause conflict, they can lead to long-term stress and unhappiness. Today, we're going to talk about conflict, its effect on us, and how we can resolve it. This lesson has 3 parts. Part 1 deals with different types of conflicts. Part 2 discusses how people react to conflict. Part 3 talks about how we can better handle conflicts in our lives. Interpersonal problems are not always as simple as 2 people disliking each other. A dispute can have many different causes. We're going to begin our lesson by discussing some common sources of disagreement. These include personal differences, miscommunication, role conflict, conflict of interest, and environmental stress. We often have problems with people because of personal differences. People have been raised in different environments and, as a result, often have diverse values and attitudes. Sometimes their views are going to clash. For example, people who share an apartment may come into conflict over keeping it clean. A neater roommate may feel that because everyone shares the kitchen, everyone should clean up their dishes as soon as possible. A messier roommate may think that this is too strict and prefers to wash his dishes every few days. This could become a source of conflict. Let's look at another example from our Dongni course. In one dialogue from Level 5, Unit 1, Card 4, a character named Kevin says, "I know Bob has been with the company longer than I have, but he's doing a terrible job. When you are not around, he just bullies people. People are afraid of him." However, it's not clear whether Bob is actually a bully or bad at his job. Kevin just says he can't stand working with him. In fact, Kevin seems to have started an argument. Whatever the reasons they dislike each other, it sounds like their personalities don't mix. This is what we call personal differences. But personal differences aren't always the source of disagreement. Sometimes, serious disputes can arise from misunderstandings. In any relationship, maintaining good communication is important. Everyone has different opinions, values, behaviors, and feelings. If we have a problem with someone, but communicate our feelings clearly, that person can better understand our needs and intentions. Unfortunately, we are not always good communicators. All too often, we don't think things through carefully and make assumptions without telling others. When this happens, we risk running into conflict. For example, a project is assigned to a group at work, but some people aren't sure who is responsible for certain tasks. While some employees may ask their manager to better understand their roles, others may assume they know what to do and don't ask. Of course, this may lead to miscommunication. The employees who assumed they knew what to do may have done the wrong work. Or perhaps two employees did the same task, while other tasks were left incomplete. These employees may then become frustrated and blame each other, which hurts team spirit. So, if we are ever unsure about information, we should speak up. Otherwise, we risk running into problems. Communication styles can also lead to communication problems. For example, some people are straightforward. When they speak, they don't care about being polite. But other people are sensitive and don't like direct criticism. If their coworker is too straightforward, they may think that person is rude, mean, or doesn't like them. This could become a source of conflict. Sometimes our internal conflict can lead to interpersonal conflict. Role conflict is an example of this. We all have roles in our lives. For example, we may be parents, children, employees, friends, and partners, and possibly all at once. Each of these roles has responsibilities and expectations. A good employee is organized and responsible. A caring parent reads to their children before bed. In the perfect world, we can balance these roles all the time. But life is not always simple. We often need to juggle between work and our relationships. Sometimes we even need to choose between these roles. This is known as role conflict. For example, a man has gotten a big promotion at work. He is excited for his new responsibilities. But now he needs to spend more time at the office. But the more time he puts into work, the more his family life suffers. When he comes home, his daughter is already asleep. For him, his role as a good employee is conflicting with his role as a good dad. Sometimes, role conflict can be internal. We may just be stressed managing so many responsibilities. But if we can't manage those responsibilities well, it may lead to interpersonal problems. For example, that man's busy schedule may cause him to fight with his wife because she feels he's ignoring his family. Sometimes, fulfilling different roles can create a conflict of interests. This means that we engage in an activity that benefits us but do not benefit our employer. For example, if a manager begins dating one of his employees, it creates a conflict of interest. He may give her better treatment or even promotions based on their romantic relationship. This creates a conflict of interest with his company, which asks that manager to treat employees fairly and promote them based on their achievements. Not to mention, other employees could become jealous. Our environment can also play a significant role in creating conflict. Let's talk about how environmental stress can affect interpersonal relationships. Human beings may be sensitive to their environment. Noise, crowds, light, and even color can all cause us to become uncomfortable or annoyed. Just think about how we may feel on our morning commute. And if these annoyances build up over days or weeks, we may become stressed, emotional, or even aggressive. For example, when a big project is almost due, we often need to work overtime to finish it. As a result, we may not be sleeping well and may also feel pressure to make the project successful. Together with our long commute and noisy colleagues, we may become easily irritated. Suddenly, coworkers we normally like start to annoy us. Of course, our irritation is not someone else's fault. It's a reaction to our environment. But it could lead to conflict. If we get angry with a coworker, we may raise our voice or even yell at them. Maybe they will yell at us. As a result, someone may get offended or upset. If we don't apologize, these negative feelings could stay long after the environmental stress is gone. Speaking of getting angry, now we're going to talk about how people can react to conflict. We will touch on some common reactions, including getting aggressive, shouting, and pretending the conflict doesn't exist. Sometimes, if people have problems with one another, they may try to ignore them. They may pretend their problems don't exist. For example, if our friends went out and didn't invite us, we may avoid the issue and forget to bring it up. But denying a problem can lead to more problems. If we speak about the situation with our friends, they may have a good explanation for why they didn't invite us. But if we don't address it, we may assume that they don't like us or respect us. Over time, feelings of bitterness can grow, damaging our friendships. In English, when people have a specific problem but pretend it doesn't exist, we call that problem the elephant in the room. Everyone can see it, but no one wants to talk about it. Other times, people respond to conflict with anger or aggression. They may yell, start an argument, or even get violent. When we feel angry, our brains are flooded with stress hormones, and the part of our brain responsible for rational thought shuts down. Rather than responding carefully, we stop thinking and start to attack. But this only adds to the conflict rather than stopping it. Look at Kevin and Bob in our Dongni course. They were shouting at each other and even pushing each other. Neither of them were in a rational frame of mind. All they wanted to do was win an argument. Kevin was so focused on Bob that he wasn't even aware of how unprofessional it was to yell in an office. He was blinded by anger. People like Kevin and Bob are known as hotheads. This means someone who gets angry very quickly, and often over small problems. Most offices do not have too many hotheads like Kevin and Bob. Thankfully, outward aggression at work is rare. Unfortunately, many people are passive-aggressive. Instead of openly arguing with someone, they express their anger through indirect and unfriendly words and actions. For example, a passive-aggressive coworker may leave our name off an email for an important meeting. A passive-aggressive classmate may ignore us when we pass them in the hall, even though we've met them before. If our partner is passive-aggressive, they may take a long time to respond to texts after we've had a small argument. Of course, it's hard to tell whether passive-aggressive behavior is deliberate or not. If we confront a passive-aggressive person about their behavior, they will usually deny it. Our coworker will say they just forgot to add us to that email. Or our partner may say she or he was too busy to respond to our texts. Seems like it could just be an innocent misunderstanding, right? Passive-aggressive people behave this way because they have difficulty being direct. They prefer to express their emotions in a subtle way. It suggests they're upset without saying it completely. This is frustrating because it can be hard to resolve a dispute when we can't communicate with someone clearly. To tell if someone is being passive-aggressive, try to spot a pattern in their behavior. If our partner takes a long time to respond to our texts after one fight, it may not be an issue. But if they behave this way after every fight, they are probably being passive-aggressive. Now that we've discussed all the ways people react to conflict, we're going to talk about how to solve a conflict. This involves identifying the source of a disagreement, proposing solutions, and deciding on which solution works best. In a dispute or disagreement, people may have a hard time expressing the reason why they're actually upset. For example, perhaps our partner is upset that we have made plans for Saturday night without them. But instead of saying, "I'm upset you didn't consider my feelings," they may just treat us coldly. When we ask them if something's wrong, they say, "Nothing is the matter." So, when handling conflict, we first need to identify its source. If two people have a problem, but clearly communicate their feelings, they may be able to quickly identify the reason they're upset. But sometimes people may have to talk through their feelings to find out why. So, it's a good idea to set aside time to really discuss any problems in detail. Speaking of which, when addressing a dispute, it's critical to find an appropriate time to discuss it. Oftentimes, people wait until they're arguing to address a dispute. But this usually just leads to shouting and insults, and nothing is solved. It's better to wait until everyone is calm and can discuss issues rationally. It's a good idea to practice empathy when discussing a problem. Empathy means being able to understand someone else's feelings. Let's talk about why and how it's important. In a dispute, it's easy for us to feel as if we're right and that the other side is wrong. But we have to recognize the limits of our perspective. Just because we think something is trivial doesn't mean it is. And if our behavior upsets someone, it doesn't mean they are wrong. Empathy allows us to do this. For example, a man has a female colleague who often sends him emails after work hours, but he rarely responds. For him, it's rude to expect him to work after he has gone home. That colleague already spends too much time telling him what to do during work. Can't she take a break? Maybe his coworker does work a little too much, but for her, things move quickly in the office, and she needs to make sure everyone stays updated. If she doesn't, she may get in trouble with their boss. So, when he doesn't respond, she has to talk to him in person to confirm. She may feel like, in addition to doing her job, she has to always follow up with him about new tasks and changes. Not responding to emails makes her life harder. But is anyone really wrong in this situation? If these employees discuss this issue, in addition to explaining their own feelings, they should be prepared to understand someone else's perspective. It may make them more aware of how their behavior affects other people. When we sit down to talk about a dispute, we should try to keep the discussion specific, but open. This means we should identify the problem as clearly as possible, but also allow time to discuss our feelings about it. Of course, discussing a source of conflict is not always a 100% rational conversation. If the issue hasn't been addressed in a long time, people may have developed additional problems or prejudices. For example, if we don't wash the dishes long enough, over time, our roommate may start to think we're irresponsible and disorganized in other ways too. But when working toward a solution, we need to stick to the issue at hand. In other words, we should focus on washing the dishes, not assumptions or other complaints. This solves an actual problem and changes actual behavior. Let's go back to the example about email. The man's coworker may want to say, "It causes problems for me when you don't respond to my emails," rather than, "You don't take this job seriously." This helps identify the source of the problem. If we aren't clear about our problem, we can't come up with a workable solution. But at the same time, we should also express how we feel about a situation. For example, that employee could explain why he doesn't answer his emails. He turns his phone off when he leaves the office, and doing work before bed makes it hard for him to fall asleep. That way, they can avoid misunderstandings and become more aware of their feelings. Understanding why someone behaves the way they do can help us better understand them. As they explain their behavior, it may no longer seem wrong, but just different from our own. We may even begin to relate to them. When we are discussing a problem, we should also ask probing questions. These are questions that try to get more to the heart of the issue. For example, rather than ask, "Why can't you send emails earlier?" one employee could ask, "When I don't respond to your email, what kind of problems does it cause?" Maybe his coworker needs to coordinate with other team members, and when he doesn't respond, it slows up the workflow. And maybe even some colleagues get upset with her. As we're discussing an issue we have with someone, we should be respectful of their feelings. This may not always be easy. Maybe we think that their problems are silly, or maybe they are criticizing personality traits of ours that we don't like to admit. It's easy to react in anger or dismiss what they say. But showing someone that we respect their opinions makes them feel valued. When people feel valued, they're more likely to communicate openly and listen to our needs too. This helps us find common ground. Once we've identified the issue, we can begin to work on the solutions. Some ways of working toward a solution include determining our underlying needs, identifying common ground, and focusing on their real concerns. When handling any conflict, we need to address the core concerns behind it. Let's consider the employee who sends emails late at night. Her main issue isn't that her coworker doesn't use his phone at night. It's that he usually doesn't respond. The issue for her is about communication, not timing. Another way to reach a solution is to find common ground. This means a shared outcome both people can accept. If the man doesn't want to answer emails at night, follow up with him the next day. They both just need the right time to communicate with each other. When solving a dispute, we should find a solution that everyone can agree on. In our email example, both parties need to find a time to communicate with each other. If the man doesn't like responding to emails late at night, maybe he could agree to answer them in the morning, once he gets to work. That way, he can still reply to his coworker before the day starts, but he doesn't need to work from home. Today, you have learned about the causes of and solutions to interpersonal conflict. Going forward, we hope you'll be able to use what you've learned to better handle disputes in your own life. See you next time!